never imagined I'd be sharing this story, let alone with complete strangers. But something in me just needs to let it out. I'm 47, divorced, a mother to one teenage son. And for the last few years, my life has felt like a scratched-up record, always playing the same track. Wake up, work night shift, come home, sleep, repeat. I'm a nurse. And not the glamorous kind that TV shows like to romanticize. I work nights, where time feels both frozen and infinite. The stories I've seen on my shifts could make your heart ache for days. Over time, you learn to suppress the emotions, even when your body's running on caffeine and autopilot. Life outside of work? Honestly, it's faded into the background. I don't have much of a social life. I don't date. I barely even see the sun. But a year ago, something changed. I found bowling. Sounds silly, I know. Maybe something you'd expect from someone twice my age, but for me, it became a tiny spark. I joined a local league just to do something outside of work, and surprisingly, I wasn't terrible. It gave me structure, joy, and for once, something to look forward to. Last month, I qualified for my first real tournament. 3 hours away from home. I was thrilled. I'd practiced for months, and it felt like a small piece of the woman I used to be before the divorce had finally come back to life. But then the reality hit me. My son, my sweet, rebellious teenager, couldn't be left alone for a weekend. He's not a bad kid. He's just hurting in ways I think even he doesn't understand. His dad's been inconsistent, and I can see it wearing on him. The last time I left him alone, I came home to a garage door that looked like it lost a fight with a monster truck. Long story. So I did what any stretched-thin mother would do. I packed up the car, booked a hotel with an indoor pool, and took him with me. The first morning, I let him sleep in. His face, softened by the blankets and the quiet glow of early light, looked more like the little boy I used to tuck in at night. I gently nudged him awake and asked if he wanted breakfast. Pancakes, he mumbled. That was enough to get him moving. Downstairs, we sat at the typical hotel buffet: rubbery eggs, bacon so crisp it shattered, and muffins that somehow tasted both dry and stale. He piled his plate with syrup-drenched pancakes, and I watched the fog of distance between us lift, even if just a little. Later, I asked if he wanted to do anything before I headed back to the tournament. His eyes lit up. There's a mall nearby, he said. GameStop might have this game I've been looking for. He rarely asks for much, so I agreed. We wandered the crowded mall, and eventually, he found the game. It was overpriced, of course, some old edition selling for nearly $60. I almost said no, but then I saw his face. That hopeful, earnest smile I hadn't seen in ages. I bought it. And I don't regret it. We spent the rest of the afternoon wandering, people watching, joking around. For the first time in a long time, I wasn't just his mom who's always tired. I was someone he wanted to talk to, be around. That night at the tournament, I felt good, centered, grateful. I didn't bowl my best. Stress oddly improves my game. Go figure, but Sarah, a friend from my league, ended up winning. We all went out to celebrate. I had a couple drinks, more than I normally would, and laughed harder than I had in months. It reminded me that joy doesn't have to be loud or perfect. Sometimes it's just the sound of people who see you. I got back to the hotel around 1 a.m. tipsy. Tired. Happy. My son was fast asleep, the TV still playing. I tucked him in without waking him, changed, and crawled into bed. But I couldn't sleep. I laid there thinking. About life. About the choices I've made. About how lonely parenting can feel sometimes. The quiet kind of lonely that seeps into your bones. Then I looked at him, my son, this complicated, changing human. I realized how little time we really spend seeing each other these days. I've been so busy surviving, I forgot to just be his mom. In the stillness of that room, it hit me. Not everything in life has to be about fixing the past or chasing a better future. Sometimes healing comes from moments that just are. A shared breakfast. A mall trip. A tournament. A smile. I don't know how the rest of our lives will go. I don't have all the answers. But in that hotel room, I remembered why I keep going. For him. For us. We may not be perfect, but we're trying. And sometimes, that's enough. The next morning came quietly. The sunlight filtered through the hotel curtains in soft slants, casting golden streaks on the carpet. My son was still asleep, curled on his side, the video game he had begged for the day before resting on the nightstand next to him. For a brief moment, I just sat there and watched him breathe. There's something sacred about watching your child sleep, especially when they're no longer small. The world doesn't often give single parents space to pause. We're constantly caught between bills, work, obligations, and guilt. But that morning, everything else fell away. When he finally stirred, he blinked at me groggily, then smiled, the kind of smile I hadn't seen since before his father moved out. I asked if he wanted to hit the pool before we checked out. Sure, he said, surprising me again. We didn't talk much at the pool. But sometimes, words just get in the way. He swam laps, goofed around, and for a moment, he was a boy again. My boy. And I got to sit at the edge of that world and watch him be free, something he hadn't really been in a while. Later that afternoon, I dropped him off at the arcade next to the hotel while I bowled my final game. I didn't win. I didn't even place in the top 3. But I wasn't disappointed, because something more important had happened. I had come here looking for a chance to reconnect with myself, to feel something beyond work, exhaustion, and responsibility. What I didn't expect was to reconnect with him too. Somewhere in between the pancakes and the overpriced video game, between the bad coffee and the endless car ride, we found each other again. After I picked him up from the arcade, we drove home in comfortable silence. He had his headphones in. I had the radio low. But there was something different in the air between us, a quiet understanding that we'd both needed this. When we pulled into the driveway, he turned to me and said, "Thanks for bringing me, Mom." It was, actually, kind of fun. That might not sound like much, but coming from a teenage boy, it felt like a handwritten letter from the heart. Looking back, it's been a few weeks since that trip, and life has returned to its usual rhythm. Night shifts, grocery runs, homework reminders, and reheated dinners. But something's changed. He's been a little more present. He helps out more. He asks how I'm doing. I even caught him setting the table without being asked, a miracle in itself. And me? I've started carving out little pieces of time for myself again. I've been practicing my bowling in the evenings, not because I'm chasing trophies, but because it makes me feel alive. Human. Whole. This story doesn't have a dramatic ending. There's no huge revelation or sweeping moment of closure. Just a small, quiet win in the middle of a messy life. But sometimes, that's what healing looks like. Small moments. Shared laughter. Pancakes at sunrise. I'm learning that motherhood isn't about always getting it right. It's about showing up tired, unsure, but present. And if I can do that, if we can keep doing that, maybe that's enough. Maybe that's more than enough. Life doesn't always give us perfect moments. Sometimes it offers us quiet ones, soft spaces in between the chaos where love gently reminds us it's still there. I didn't win the tournament. I didn't come home with a trophy. But I came home with something better, a reminder that even in the exhaustion, in the repetition, in the lonely corners of life, connection is still possible. We may not always say the right things. We may not always know what the future holds. But if we just keep showing up for each other, even when it's hard, that might be enough. Because healing isn't always loud. Sometimes, it sounds like pancakes and laughter. And sometimes, it sounds like love finding its way home again. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to subscribe, like, and leave a comment below. Tell us what small moment reminded you of love. We'd love to hear your story.